Well, hello there. My name is HW. Do you ever get a new guitar and it's just like it just sounds juicy and spectacular and you love it? Well, that's how I feel whenever I get a new Suhr guitar. And I got a new Suhr guitar. Check this thing out. It's got a cool little headstock here. And kind of that two-tone headstock that Suhr does. And this great color. And these are MLs or V63s, depending on what year you bought them. The pickups have different names, but they just sound really spectacular and really juicy. Here's the number 4 position. Here's the number 5. I was watching a Paul Davids video earlier, and he reminded me how much I love the sound of a deluxe reverb. So I pulled up my 65 Deluxe Verb V4, and it just sounds tremendous, and I love it with a Strat. I love it with pretty much every guitar. But truly, I pulled this thing up, and I double took. I went, wait, is that a Michael Britt profile? It sounds amazing. It's a Tone Junkie profile. Hey, all right, well, there we go. That is a good sounding amp. I don't know. You know, it's funny with this amp. I actually always wanted to profile it with an Oxford speaker, and I might go back and do that one day because that's the other sort of speaker that often came in these old 65 Deluxe Verbs. But that's not the point of the video today. The point of the video today is to talk about a control that I'm not sure I've ever done a video on. And it's one that I saw Christoph talking about on the Kemper forums. And it's called tube shape. And before we get into this, I want you to know this is not a control that's going to totally take a profile you don't like and turn it into something that you do, or vice versa. In fact, whenever we have the gain very low or very high, the effects might be not very noticeable at all. But sort of in this in-between range, the tube shape becomes very usable. So let's check this out. I'm gonna go into some of the options in my profile here. Holding down the amp button, I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna see these options. Now, if you don't see these options, page over. It's on page 2 of 4 of the amplifier section. And there's a value here called tube shape. Now, this is one of the few values in the amplifier section that is preset. It's always going to be preset to 3.3 when you create a profile. 3.3, I think, is kind of like the Kemper deciding what this value is going to be, and that becomes the middle point. Similarly, you know, tube sagging at 0 power sagging, at 0 is always the default setting, and then you can increase the sag. You know, so default, however tight it is, that becomes 0 on the power sag, and sort of the feel of the profile is always sort of that tube shape at 3.3. Now, what happens here is this control allows us to sort of amend or change the distortion characteristic of the profile. And you can think of tube shape as literally, think of it as moving from one shape tube to another shape tube. So at lower settings, we're going to get something that is a breakup that is more synonymous with preamp breakup, smaller tubes, a smaller shaped tube. And then as we make it larger, we're going to be able to go for something all the way up around 9 or so, is going to be something where we get a glassier, harder, edgier. Glassier is the word I would use, and it really is the sound of more power amp distortion. So we actually can change some of the character here in the breakup. Where I find this to be especially useful is maybe in louder amps that are being pushed very hard. Think of 50-watt Marshalls when you really get them cooking. They sound different than 100-watt Marshalls, which may have a lot more headroom. Another place you might really find that it's good to use these is lower wattage, lower power combos. So like a deluxe reverb or maybe like a little Magnatone or something. I was just profiling a Magnatone amp earlier, and I thought this control really was incredible. In fact, we'll look at that in a moment. But this tube shape up at 8 is going to give us a harder, edgier feel, more like a power tube, like a larger tube. And it kind of reminds me of the breakup you get in a larger tube like an EL34, maybe a 6v6 too, but that edgier kind of sound. And then as you come back, 3.3 and lower is kind of going to be more of a power, a preamp tube type distortion. So let's really quick hear it where it was, and then we'll jump up and hear it at the other settings. I'm going to go to the number 5 position just to give myself a little more push out of these pickups. And this is a deluxe reverb, turned to like 8 or something. It sounds like this. Now I'm going to change that value up to 9. We're going to go pretty extreme. I'll put it at 9.2, and it's going to sound like this. Back to 3.3 now. I'm actually going to put it just at 0 so we can really hear the most extremes. And now back up to 10 this time. All the way back to 0 now. And now all the way up to 10. A couple things I notice. I'm monitoring through this cab right here that you're seeing. This isn't just a dummy cab. I'm sitting right here. I'm sitting next to it. I'm a little higher than the cabinet, so I'm not getting all the highs out of the center of the cone. The tube shape at 10 to me has a subtle effect that to me, where I'm sitting and how I'm listening here, actually sounds more like the amp in the room. And it's also giving me the sensation that I'm listening to an amp that's turned up very loud. Now that is a sensation that I will tell you I often feel when I listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan records. There's something about his tone that just sounds extra loud. Like I'm listening to, even if I'm listening at a quiet volume, I can tell that that amp was very loud when it was recorded. Now recently I figured out that part of that is the vibroverb sound that I've always kind of associated as the 15-inch speaker sound. It has this very thumpy, strong bass and kind of does a thing. But that you could hear the amp is just loud. And I think that is a feeling I get and I've associated with a certain type of breakup, power amp breakup. And the higher I turn this tube shape, the more it gives me that feeling. So listen to this, it's a little glassier than the lower settings. Almost more aggressive and edgier, whereas this is a little bluesier and warmer. You got to have some headphones or something to hear this, but if you're on a phone and you can't appreciate this, but I'm telling you, it's actually, for a player, there's a little bit of like EQ change, but the feel is there. One is a lot, almost more expressive. The higher tube shape value is almost a bit more expressive, and it feels like there's a little more distance between the light touch, cleaner tone, and the harder touch. heavier digging in kind of sound. And the harder I dig in, the more of this edginess I get, of this very rocky kind of thing. And it reminds me a lot of EL34s, the way those break up. Now, this is an EL34 amp, and it doesn't sound like a Marshall or something, but it's that harder sort of breakup that doesn't have as much warmth, you know? Turning that again down, and I'm going to get a squishier, bluesier feel. Funny, there's been some talk lately, there's been some videos going up, and people are saying that the Kemper has this very woolly low mids kind of thing. And to me, this is actually a control that sort of augments that a bit. Actually raising the tube shape up can take away from some of that squishiness. Now, a lot of us like that feel, and it works a lot of times, but I understand if that's not a characteristic in the amp, it may not be something that you want the Kemper to accentuate. And so raising that tube shape, to me, has always been the way to sort of address that. Like I said, those low mids that you kind of get, a lot of times there's something that's very enjoyable and pleasurable to play, but I would suggest you play around with this tube shape if you ever have a problem with that. I also would suggest lifting the clarity up a little bit. Our clarity here is at 3.2. That is a tone. Brother, that is a tone. Come on, man. That's good stuff. This tube shape control is really interesting. It's actually one that I personally feel like I've underutilized. And I would suggest if you have any Tone Junkie profiles, Michael Britt profiles, anything, live ready sound, anything, even try some of the harder stuff, like, I don't know, just maybe I don't know if Sin Mix, like modern metal stuff, is going to be a little bit high on the gain range. And like I said, this control really has the most effect in these middle gain ranges. So just know that. It doesn't really affect profiles all the same way. But heavier gain stuff, you might not notice that big of a difference. Very clean, not very big of a difference. But in these middle gain ranges, try it on whoever's profiles you're playing. Try upping that tube shape and try it with different guitars. This guitar is going to kind of give you that harder edge one way, but with a little something else, you're going to get another edge a different way. Now, I'm going to actually show you one more profile here. It's a profile that I've never released, but it is coming out soon. It is the 62 Magnatone 440 B23. What does that mean? 62, it's a Magnatone amp. It's the 440 model. If you're not familiar, that's like something that I would put in. The controls are similar to a Tweed Deluxe, but I don't think the amp is similar to a Tweed Deluxe, but it's set up with 2 volumes and a tone, and there's actually 4 inputs. Is there 4 inputs on a Tweed Deluxe? There is 4 inputs on a Tweed Deluxe. I'm looking at one behind me. There is actually 4 inputs. So it's set up very much that same way, but has the that Magnatone tone. And for a lot of people that don't know, Magnatone is kind of one of the forgotten American amp companies, and they made a lot of incredible amps, ones that I'm discovering right now. This is the bright switch on, and it sounds like this. Hey, you shut up and just play the guitar. Okay. W12 combo from '62. It had the most, you'll see in a future video, there was no Tolex on it. It had the most ridiculous like wallpaper covering that looks like marble. Like as though an amp could be made of marble. It's just the most tacky, god-awful thing that probably went beautiful with shag orange carpet and, you know, that haircut that Carol Brady had. You know, what a time to be alive. Carol Brady, I think that was born in the 70s, right? I don't know. I was born in 86, so it's all before me. What a great sound. Now, back to the amplifier section. I've actually already got this tube shape up at 9.4, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. But let me bring it way down to 0, and now we're going to get that bluesier feel back again. Brother, that is a tone. Come on. Uncle Willie, that's a good tone right there. That is like a really beautiful. Now that's the bluesier feel, but I gotta tell you, these little amps, they just to me come alive. I'm gonna put that tube shape at 10, you know? I mean, I gotta tell you, every combo amp I pull up in my Kemper, I'm rolling this tube shape up, and it's just something that fits with all these small combo amps. It just makes them sound a little, it almost makes them sound like they're louder, like the power amp somehow like cooking a little more than the rest of the amp. And I just think that is a wonderful feel, and it's a wonderful, wonderful parameter in the Kemper. And I'm just ecstatic. My name's been HW. I hope you find this useful. It's not one of these ones we've been talking about a bunch. We've talked about all the others, but I think we've been sleeping on the tube shape. And thank you, Christoph, for pointing that out on the boards, that you can go from a warmer, vintagey, bluesy feel to a more glassy feel. And once I really started playing around with this, I found, man, it really works beautifully on certain profiles. It just really changes the character of the amp in such a pleasing way. And probably, you know what? I'm enjoying this new guitar too. Let's be honest, okay? My name's been HW. Thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. HW, out.